Part 1: The Unbreakable Empire. The war horn sounded across Mars colony, but everyone knew it was already too late. Commander Jin stood on the observation deck of the evacuation ship, watching the red planet burn below. 6 hours ago, Mars had been home to 2 million people. Now it was a graveyard. The Valthran ships hung in space like dark monuments to humanity's helplessness. Their hulls were black and smooth, reflecting nothing. Around each ship glowed a soft blue light. That light was the Aegis shield, and it was the reason humanity was losing this war before it even began. Jin had seen the defense fleet try everything. The Mars Defense Force had thrown their best weapons at those ships. Nuclear missiles exploded against the shields and did nothing. Plasma cannons fired for 10 minutes straight and the shields never flickered. The massive railguns that could punch through a mountain just made little ripples on that blue light before the projectiles bounced away into space. "Commander, the last transport is leaving the surface," his communications officer said. Her name was Yuna, and her voice shook as she spoke. She was young, maybe 23. This was her first real combat situation. Jin wished it wasn't happening like this. "Good," Jin said. "Get us out of here." The ship's engines hummed to life. Through the viewport, Jin watched the Valthran vessels begin their bombardment. Red beams of energy lanced down from orbit. Where they touched, the ground turned to glass. Cities vanished in seconds. The terraforming equipment that had taken 50 years to build melted like ice in summer. Jin had been a soldier for 20 years. He had seen combat on the outer colonies during the resource wars. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt. But he had never seen anything like this. The Valthran weren't just winning. They were teaching humanity a lesson about how powerless they really were. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. During that time, Jin read every report he could find about the Valthran Collective. The news was all bad. The Valthran had appeared in known space 10 years ago. No one knew where they came from. They didn't communicate. They didn't negotiate. They just showed up at a star system, announced that it now belonged to them, and destroyed anyone who resisted. 47 civilizations had tried to fight them. 47 civilizations had lost. Some had advanced weapons that could crack open planets. Some had technology that could bend gravity. None of it mattered. The Aegis shield stopped everything. A few races had chosen to surrender immediately. The Valthran allowed them to live but took their worlds anyway. They became workers, servants, slaves in all but name. At least they were alive, Jin thought. But then he thought about watching Mars burn and wondered if survival was worth that price. When Jin's ship reached Earth, he went straight to the United Defense Council headquarters in Geneva. The building was chaos. Officers ran through hallways carrying datapads and reports. Alarms beeped constantly. Everyone looked tired and scared. Admiral Tay met Jin in the main briefing room. Tay was 60 years old with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Mars?" Tay asked. "Gone," Jin said. "We got 800,000 people out." "The rest?" He didn't finish the sentence. Tay nodded slowly. "Europa Station fell this morning. They didn't even try to evacuate. Our weapons couldn't touch them, so they just waited for the end." Jin sat down heavily. Europa had been his first posting as a young officer. He knew people there, had friends there. Now they were gone. "How long do we have?" Jin asked. Tay pulled up a holographic display. It showed the solar system with red markers indicating Valthran fleet positions. There were so many red markers. 3 months, Tay said. "Maybe less. They're consolidating around Jupiter right now, but they're not in any hurry. They know we can't hurt them. What about the other nations? The Asian Coalition? The African Union?" "Everyone's working together now," Tay said. "When extinction is on the table, old grudges don't matter much. We've pooled all our resources, all our scientists, all our weapons. It doesn't help. The math is simple. They have shields we can't break. We have weapons that can't break shields. The equation doesn't work in our favor." Jin stared at the hologram. 3 months. 12 weeks to watch humanity's homeworld die like all the other worlds had died. "There has to be something," Jin said. "Some way to fight back." Tay was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Maybe. There's a scientist who wants to talk to the council. Her name is Dr. Hana. She runs the Prometheus Weapons Laboratory. What does she want? She wants to build new weapons. Not better versions of what we have. Completely new. Things that have never been tried before." Jin felt a small spark of something. Not hope exactly. Hope seemed too dangerous right now. But maybe it was possibility. Does she think she can break the Aegis shield? Jin asked. She thinks she can ignore it, Tay said. 2 hours later, Jin sat in the council chamber as Dr. Hana made her presentation. She was a small woman, maybe 40 years old, with sharp eyes and hands that moved constantly as she talked. She looked both excited and terrified at the same time. The Aegis shield works by absorbing and dispersing energy, Hana explained. It can handle kinetic force by spreading the impact across its entire surface. It can handle heat by converting it to harmless radiation. It's designed to counter every type of weapon we know about. So how do we beat it? Asked Council Member Mira. We don't beat it, Hana said. We work around it. The shield is designed to protect against normal physics, so we use abnormal physics. She pulled up her own hologram. It showed complex equations that made Jin's head hurt just looking at them. I want to build weapons that break the rules, Hana said. Weapons that attack probability instead of matter. Weapons that manipulate time. Weapons that don't exist in normal space. The Valthran have perfected defense against everything the universe has thrown at them. I want to throw things the universe never thought of. The council chamber was silent. Finally, Admiral Tay spoke. How long would it take? 2 months, Hana said. Maybe less if I can get the right people. We're giving you everything you need, Tay said. Money, materials, personnel. Whatever you want. This is humanity's last chance, Hana nodded. Her hands were shaking. I'll need a facility. Somewhere remote. This work is going to be dangerous. You'll have it, Tay said. Jin watched Dr. Hana leave the council chamber. She looked so small, so fragile. The weight of an entire species rested on her shoulders now. He wondered if she knew that. He wondered if she could carry it. Outside the windows, Earth turned slowly in space. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked so peaceful from up here. But Jin knew that in 3 months it might look like Mars. Dead, burning, silent. Unless Dr. Hana could work a miracle. Unless humanity could build weapons that broke the unbreakable. Part 2. The Impossible Weapons. The Prometheus laboratory was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid near Saturn. Dr. Hana had chosen the location herself. If something went wrong with the new weapons, at least they would be far from Earth. She stood in the main laboratory looking at her team. There were 12 of them, the best minds humanity could offer. Most of them looked nervous. They should be nervous, Hana thought. What they were about to attempt had never been done before. Thank you all for coming, Hana said. I know you left important work to be here. I know some of you think this project is impossible. You might be right, but we're going to try anyway. A young woman raised her hand. Her name was Yuna, and she was the youngest person in the room at 28 years old. She was also one of the smartest quantum physicists alive. Dr. Hana, Yuna said, I've read your initial proposals. Some of these weapon concepts violate the laws of physics as we understand them. Good, Hana said. The Valthran's shields follow the laws of physics perfectly. That's why nothing can hurt them. We need to step outside those laws. A man in the back spoke up. His name was Wu, and he was an engineer with a reputation for building things that shouldn't work but somehow did. You're talking about theoretical physics, quantum mechanics on a macro scale, time manipulation. These things exist in equations, not in reality. 2 months ago, the Aegis shield existed only in theory for us, Hana said. Then the Valthran showed up and proved it was real. If they can turn theory into reality, so can we. She pulled up a holographic display showing 10 different weapon designs. Each one looked stranger than the last. These are what I'm calling the 10 Godbreakers, Hana said. Each one attacks the Valthran ships in a different way. Each one works on principles that their shields aren't designed to handle. She pointed to the first design, the Paradox Gun. It fires a projectile that exists in quantum superposition. The bullet is both fired and not fired until the target observes it. Since the shield can't block something that hasn't decided to exist yet, it passes right through. Yuna leaned forward, her eyes wide. That's brilliant. The shield would have to observe the bullet to block it, but observing it would make it real, which means it's already past the shield. Exactly, Hana said. She moved to the next design, the entropy accelerator. Instead of attacking the ship, it attacks the atomic bonds holding the ship together. It rapidly increases entropy in a localized field. The ship literally falls apart at the molecular level. An older scientist named Mira spoke up. She was a weapons specialist who had designed half the defense systems currently in use. That could work, but you'd need incredible precision. Too much entropy and you affect your own ship. Too little and it's harmless. I know, Hana said. That's why you're here. To solve problems like that, she continued through the list. The causality reverser that made cause and effect happen backwards, the quantum tunneling array that could move matter through dimensions instead of through space, the null field projector that created zones where physics simply stopped working. Each weapon was more impossible than the last. Each one made the scientists shake their heads and then lean in closer, intrigued despite themselves. The one that worries me most is this one, Hannah said, pointing to the last design. The absence bomb. It doesn't destroy matter. It removes matter from causality. The target doesn't explode or burn. It simply ceases to have ever been there. The room went quiet. Finally, Wu spoke. That's not a weapon. That's a hole in reality. Yes, Hannah said, which is why we build it last and why we never use it unless we have no other choice. For the next 6 weeks, the laboratory became a world of its own. The scientists worked 18-hour days. Sleep happened in chairs. Meals were eaten while reading data. The holographic displays never turned off. Yuna led the team working on quantum-based weapons. She had to solve the problem of making probability waves collapse in exactly the right way, at exactly the right time. It required calculations so complex that even the advanced computer struggled. It's like trying to nail down a shadow, Yuna said one night, staring at her equations. The moment you observe the quantum state, it changes. How do you weaponize something that changes when you look at it? Wu was building the actual hardware. He worked in a separate bay where failed prototypes piled up like metal corpses. The entropy accelerator exploded 12 times before he figured out how to contain the field. The causality reverser created a time loop that trapped him in the same 5 seconds for what felt like an hour. This is insane, Wu said after escaping the time loop. His hands were shaking. We're playing with forces we barely understand. I know, Hannah said. But the alternative is extinction. Mira focused on delivery systems. A weapon was useless if you couldn't aim it or fire it reliably. She designed new targeting computers that could track ships moving through quantum space. She built containment units that could hold antimatter and probability fields without blowing up. The problem isn't making these weapons, Mira said. The problem is making sure they only destroy what we aim at. By week 7, they had working prototypes of 6 weapons. The paradox gun worked, but it was unpredictable. Sometimes the bullet existed. Sometimes it didn't. They needed more testing. The entropy accelerator worked perfectly, but it was slow. It took 30 seconds to disintegrate a target. In battle, 30 seconds was an eternity. The quantum tunneling array was ready. The null field projector was ready. The dimensional blade could cut through space itself. The recursive feedback cannon could turn a shield into a weapon against itself. We're running out of time, Hannah said at the weekly progress meeting. The Valthran fleet is moving toward Earth. We have 3 weeks left. The graviton collapser isn't stable, Yuna reported. Every time we test it, it creates micro-singularities we can't control. One got away from us yesterday and nearly collapsed the entire laboratory. Fix it, Hannah said. We need all 10 weapons. What about the absence bomb? Wu asked. Hannah was quiet for a moment. That one is ready. I finished it myself. Everyone stared at her. You tested it? Mira asked. On a small scale. I removed a cubic meter of empty space from reality. It worked. There's just a hole there now. A place where space used to be but isn't anymore. That's horrifying, Yuna said. Yes, Hannah agreed. It is. In the final week, everything came together. The uncertainty engine was completed. The graviton collapser was stabilized. All 10 weapons were operational. Admiral Tay arrived at the laboratory to inspect their work. He walked through the weapon bays with Hannah, looking at each device. Some were small, no bigger than a rifle. Others were massive, requiring their own power generators. Do they work? Tay asked. We think so, Hannah said. Small-scale tests have been successful, but we won't know for sure until we use them in real combat. The Valthran fleet will reach Earth in 10 days, Tay said. We're installing your weapons on the experimental ship Prometheus. Captain Siak will command it. He'll be going with them as technical advisor. Hannah felt her stomach tighten. She had known this was coming, but it still scared her. Building weapons in a laboratory was one thing. Using them in battle was something else entirely. I understand, she said. Tay put a hand on her shoulder. Humanity is betting everything on your work. I hope you know that. I do, Hannah said. Every second of every day, I know it. She looked at the 10 weapons. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Elegant solutions to impossible problems. Humanity's last desperate attempt to survive. The Valthrin had said no gun could break them. They had built their entire empire on that belief. In 10 days, they would learn that humanity had built 10 guns that ignored their rules entirely. Hana just hoped it would be enough. Part 3. The trial of Fire Captain Seok stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and tried not to think about how many ways this could go wrong. Behind him, Dr. Hana sat at the weapons control station, her fingers moving across holographic displays. Around them, the crew worked in tense silence. Valthrin fleet detected, the sensor officer announced. 27 ships. Distance, 2 million kilometers. They're heading for Titan Station. Seok pulled up the tactical display. 27 ships. The Prometheus was alone. The rest of humanity's fleet was defending Earth itself. This experimental ship was the only thing standing between the Valthrin and the destruction of Saturn's largest colony. How many people on Titan? Seok asked. 50,000, his first officer replied. Her name was Nari, and she had volunteered for this mission knowing they probably wouldn't survive it. Then we better make this work, Seok said. He turned to Hana. Doctor, are your weapons ready? Hana looked up from her station. She looked exhausted, as ready as they'll ever be. Remember, we've never tested these at full power in combat conditions. Anything could happen. Noted, Seok said. He activated the ship-wide communication. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to engage the Valthrin fleet. I won't lie to you. We're testing weapons that might not work, fighting an enemy that has never lost. But 50,000 people are counting on us. Humanity is counting on us, so we're going to fight and we're going to win. Battle stations. The Prometheus moved forward on silent thrusters. It was a strange-looking ship, covered in unusual weapons that didn't match any known design. It looked like someone had taken 10 different ships and welded them together. In a way, that's exactly what had happened. The Valthrin ships detected them. Their formation shifted slightly, moving to intercept. They weren't hurrying. They never hurried. Why would they? Nothing could hurt them. Range 1 million kilometers, the sensor officer called out. Doctor, Seok said. Let's show them something new. Fire the paradox gun. Hana activated the first weapon. On the display, a targeting marker locked onto the lead Valthrin ship. The paradox gun charged, making a sound like reality bending. Then it fired. Nothing seemed to happen. Then everything happened at once. The bullet existed and didn't exist. It was fired and wasn't fired. The Valthrin ship's shields flickered, trying to block something they couldn't detect. And then the ship exploded. Just like that. One moment it was there, the next it was debris. The crew of the Prometheus cheered. Hana let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. 1 down, Seok said. 26 to go. Fire again, the paradox gun charged for a second shot. But this time something went wrong. The probability wave collapsed incorrectly. Instead of hitting the target, the bullet decided it had never been fired. The weapon backfired, sending quantum fluctuations through 3 decks of the Prometheus. Paradox field containment breach, someone shouted. Decks 4 through 6 are in quantum flux. Seok watched in horror as part of his ship existed in multiple states at once. Crew members flickered in and out of reality. Walls were solid and not solid. It lasted 17 seconds before the field stabilized. Casualties? Seok demanded. None, Nari reported. But everyone on those decks is shaken up. They experienced being in multiple realities at the same time. Take the paradox gun offline, Seok ordered. Doctor, try something else. The Valthrin fleet was closing now, accelerating toward them. Their weapons began to charge. Red targeting beams swept across the Prometheus. Fire the entropy accelerator, Hana shouted. The second weapon activated. It looked like nothing, just empty space bending slightly. But on the targeted Valthrin ship, atomic bonds began to break. Metal separated into molecules. Molecules separated into atoms. The ship started to come apart, but it was too slow. The Valthrin ship had time to fire. Energy beams slammed into the Prometheus. The shields held, but barely. Shields at 60%, Nari called out. We can't take many more hits. The targeted Valthrin ship was still disintegrating, but more ships were moving forward. They were adapting, spreading out so one weapon couldn't hit multiple targets. Use the causality reverser, Seok ordered. Hana activated the third weapon. This one bent time itself. Suddenly, 3 Valthrin ships experienced their deaths before they happened. Their shields malfunctioned in anticipation of damage that hadn't occurred yet. But because their shields malfunctioned, the damage did occur. Cause and effect swapped places. The 3 ships exploded. But the temporal paradox spread, affecting both sides. The Prometheus lurched as time went strange. For a moment, the ship had been destroyed and not destroyed. Crew members experienced dying and living. It was horrifying. "Shut it down," Siak yelled. "That weapon is too dangerous." In the engineering bay, Wu was already working. His hands flew across control panels, making adjustments in real time. "The quantum tunneling array is ready," he announced over the communication system. "It should be stable." "Fire it," Siak commanded. This weapon worked differently. It didn't shoot anything through normal space. Instead, it created a tunnel through dimensions. Antimatter appeared directly inside a Valthran ship's reactor core, bypassing the shields entirely. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. The Valthran ship became a small sun for 3 seconds before collapsing into debris. "That's more like it," Siak said. "Keep firing." The battle turned into chaos. The dimensional blade sliced through space, creating rifts that cut 3 Valthran ships in half. Their shields meant nothing against an attack that ignored 3-dimensional space. The null field projector created zones where physics stopped working. 2 Valthran ships flew into the field and simply died. Their engines stopped. Their life support failed. They drifted as lifeless metal. The Graviton collapser tore holes in space-time. Micro-black holes appeared and disappeared, pulling Valthran ships apart with impossible gravitational forces. But the Valthran weren't stupid. They began to retreat, moving away from the Prometheus. They were analyzing, learning, trying to figure out how to counter weapons they had never seen before. "They're running," someone shouted. "Don't let them escape," Sayok said. "If they learn how our weapons work, they'll find counters." "Fire the recursive feedback cannon." This weapon was cruel in its elegance. It fed the Aegis shield's own energy back into itself in an amplifying loop. The targeted Valthran ship's shields glowed brighter, then brighter still. The ship's crew tried to shut down their shields, but it was too late. The shields overloaded, releasing all their stored energy inward. 4 ships destroyed themselves this way. Their own defenses turned into weapons against them. The Valthran fleet broke formation completely. They scattered, jumping to faster-than-light speed, fleeing into deep space. Out of 27 ships, only 18 escaped. 9 floated as wreckage. The crew of the Prometheus erupted in celebration. They had won. They had actually won. But Siak wasn't celebrating. He looked at the damage reports. 3 decks affected by quantum flux. Hull breaches on 5 levels. 12 crew members in medical bay suffering from temporal paradox exposure. The ship had barely survived, and this had been a small fleet. A scout force. The real Valthran armada was still coming. "Doctor," Siak said quietly, "will the weapons hold up in a larger battle?" Hana looked at her displays. Half the weapons had malfunctioned or caused dangerous side effects. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we don't have a choice. We have to make them work." Siak nodded. He opened a channel to Earth. "Admiral Tay, this is Captain Siak. Mission successful. Titan Station is safe. But sir, we need more ships with these weapons." "A lot more ships." "Understood," Tay's voice came back. "Production is already underway." "Because you just proved something, Captain. The Valthran can bleed, and if they can bleed, we can kill them." Siak looked out at the debris field, at the wreckage of ships that everyone had said were indestructible. For the first time in months, he felt something like hope. The galaxy had believed the Valthran were unbeatable. Today, humanity had proven them wrong. The real war was about to begin. Part 4. The turning tide, the news of humanity's victory at Titan spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. In command centers, in colony ships, in underground resistance bases, people watched the footage and couldn't believe what they saw. Valthran ships exploding, Valthran ships retreating. The impossible had happened, but in the Valthran High Command there was no celebration. There was only rage. Executor Valth stood before the Command Council, his face twisted with fury. The Valthran were an ancient race, proud and powerful. For thousands of years they had conquered without defeat. Now a primitive species had destroyed 9 of their ships with weapons that made no sense. "Impossible," one commander said, watching the battle footage for the 10th time. "Our Aegis shields are perfect. They have been tested for millennia." "Clearly not perfect enough," Valth said coldly. "The humans have created weapons that bypass our shields. This cannot stand. Send everything. I want 300 ships. I want Earth turned to dust. I want humanity erased from existence." 300 ships? Another commander questioned. "That's excessive for one primitive planet." Nothing about this is primitive, Valth snapped. They've rewritten the rules of warfare. If we don't crush them now, completely and utterly, this resistance will spread. Every species we've conquered will start asking why they surrendered. Send everything. On Earth, Admiral Tay received the intelligence about the incoming armada and felt his blood turn cold. 300 ships, the largest force the Valthran had ever assembled. How many ships do we have ready? He asked Commodore Jin. Jin had been promoted after the victory at Titan. Now he commanded the human defense fleet. 87 ships equipped with the new weapons. Another 40 with conventional arms for support. It's not enough. It'll have to be, Tay said. We can't evacuate Earth. There's nowhere to evacuate to. This is our home. We stand here or we die here. The defensive line was set up in the outer rim near the asteroid belt. It was the last barrier between the Valthran and Earth. Jin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor displays as 300 enemy ships appeared on the edge of the system. They brought everything, Nari said. She was Jin's second in command now. This is their full armada. Good, Jin said, though his hands were shaking. Then we can break them all at once. Dr. Hana and her team had worked for weeks to improve the weapons. The paradox gun was more stable. The entropy accelerator was faster. New targeting systems made the weapons more accurate. But improvements only went so far. The numbers were still terrible. 87 ships against 300. All ships, this is Commodore Jin, he broadcast to the fleet. We're outnumbered 3-1. The enemy thinks that matters. They think they can overwhelm us with force. But we have something they don't. We have weapons that break their rules. We have fought them and won, and we're fighting to protect our home. Today we show the Valthran that humanity doesn't break. Begin attack pattern Omega. The human fleet spread out in a wide formation. It looked defensive, weak even. The Valthran took the bait, accelerating forward in their standard wedge formation. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. The battle began with the recursive feedback cannons. 20 ships fired at once, targeting the Valthran vanguard. Enemy shields began to glow, then overload. 10 Valthran ships destroyed themselves with their own power. The wedge formation collapsed into chaos. Now, Jin ordered. Hit them with everything. The quantum tunneling arrays opened dimensional portals. Antimatter appeared inside Valthran reactors. Ships exploded from within, their shields useless against attacks that never crossed normal space. The dimensional blade weapons carved through the enemy formation like a knife through paper. 3 massive rifts in spacetime appeared, each one slicing through multiple ships. Metal screamed as hulls were cut along impossible angles. The graviton collapsers activated, creating fields of twisted space. Valthran ships were pulled apart by tidal forces that made black holes look gentle. Some ships imploded, others were stretched until they broke. But the Valthran weren't helpless. They had numbers and they had experience. Their return fire was devastating. Human ships exploded under concentrated energy beams. The shield systems on humanity's vessels weren't as advanced as the Aegis shield. When they failed, the ships behind them died. We've lost the Defiant, someone reported. The Courage is badly damaged. The Victory is breaking apart. Jin watched his fleet shrink on the tactical display. They were winning, but the cost was terrible. Focus fire on their command ships, he ordered. Take out their leadership. In the middle of the Valthran fleet, Executor Valth watched the battle with growing horror. 50 of his ships were already gone. 50. And the humans were still fighting. Their weapons were even more effective than the intelligence had suggested. Pull back the front line, Valth ordered. Reform at maximum range. We need to analyze their tactics, but the humans didn't let them retreat. Jin pushed forward, pressing the advantage. Use the null field projectors, Jin commanded. Create dead zones in their retreat path. 6 human ships activated the null field weapon. Zones of non-physics appeared in space, blocking the Valthran retreat. Enemy ships flew into the fields and died instantly. 30 more ships lost. They're hurting us, Valth realized with shock. Like animals. On the human flagship, Hana was monitoring all 10 weapon systems. Most were working well, but they had one weapon they hadn't used yet. The absence bomb. It sat in its containment unit waiting. Dr. Hana, Jin said over the private channel. We're winning, but barely. We've lost 30 ships. At this rate, both fleets will be destroyed. I need something that will make them surrender. Something that will break their will to fight. Hana looked at the absence bomb's control panel. She had hoped never to use this weapon. It was too terrible, too wrong. But Jin was right. They needed something that would horrify the enemy into surrender. "I have something," she said quietly. "But once I use it, there's no going back. It will change everything." "Do it," Jin said. Hana's fingers trembled as she entered the activation codes. On the bridge of her ship, Lieutenant Nari received the firing solution. She was Hana's daughter. The doctor had tried to keep her off combat assignments, but Nari had insisted on serving. "Target locked," Nari reported. "Valthran Command Dreadnought. 3,000 crew members aboard." Hana closed her eyes. Fire, the absence bomb launched. It was small, about the size of a baseball. It flew through space on a simple trajectory. The Valthran shields tried to stop it, but the bomb wasn't really there. It existed outside causality, outside normal space and time. When it reached the command dreadnought, reality broke. The ship didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply stopped existing, not destroyed but removed from having ever been there. A wound in reality appeared where the dreadnought had been. Space itself bled. Everyone in the battle felt it, a wrongness that made their souls ache. 4,000 Valthran crew members hadn't died. They had never been born, never lived, never existed. Their families would remember them, but reality itself had forgotten them. The Valthran fleet stopped fighting. Every ship, every crew member felt the horror of what had just happened. This wasn't war. This was something worse. Retreat. The Valthran commander's broadcast. "All ships, immediate retreat." The enemy fleet broke and ran. 300 ships had entered the system. Less than 100 limped away. The rest floated as debris, or worse, as casualties of weapons that rewrote reality. On Jin's flagship, there was no celebration. Everyone had felt the absence bomb. "Everyone knew what it meant, sir," Nari said quietly. "The Valthran are requesting a ceasefire." Jin looked at the tactical display. Valthran ships were jumping to faster than light speed, fleeing as fast as they could. "Accept their request," Jin said. "This battle is over." He looked at Hana's ship on the display. The doctor had just used a weapon that erased 4,000 people from existence. She had won the war, but at a terrible price. The Valthran had said no weapon could break them. They had been wrong, but Jin wondered if humanity had broken something worse. They had broken the universe's rules, and he wasn't sure what would come of that. Part 5. The Price of Victory. 3 weeks after the battle, the Valthran sent a message to Earth. It was simple and direct. They wanted to negotiate. For the first time in their 1,000-year history, the Valthran Collective was asking for peace. Admiral Tay assembled a diplomatic team. He chose carefully. Dr. Hana would lead the negotiations. Commodore Jin would provide military perspective, and several politicians would handle the legal details. But everyone knew the real power in the room would be Hana. She had built the weapons that changed everything. The meeting took place on a neutral space station in orbit around Jupiter. The station had been hastily constructed for this purpose. When Hana walked through the airlock, she saw the Valthran delegation waiting. Executor Valth stood at the head of their group. He was tall, gray-skinned, with eyes that burned with barely controlled anger. Next to him stood several military commanders and advisors. They all looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and hatred. "Dr. Hana," Valth said. His voice was cold. "The architect of our defeat." "Executor Valth," Hana replied. She kept her voice steady, but inside she was terrified. This being had commanded the deaths of billions. "Shall we begin?" They sat at a long table in the station's main conference room. Earth on one side, the Valthran on the other. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, Valth broke the silence. "You have weapons that violate the natural order. Weapons that should not exist. We demand you surrender them to the collective immediately." Jin laughed. He couldn't help it. "You came to our world to exterminate us. We stopped you. And now you demand we give up our only defense? Those weapons are too dangerous," a Valthran commander said. "The absence bomb particularly. Do you understand what you did? You didn't just kill our people. You erased them from existence. That's not warfare. That's an abomination." "You're right," Hana said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "The absence bomb is an abomination. I wish I had never built it. But I did because you gave me no choice. You were going to destroy Earth. You were going to kill every human being alive. I built a terrible weapon to stop you. And now that weapon exists," Valth said. "What happens when another species gets it? What happens when someone uses it not for defense but for genocide? You've opened a door that cannot be closed. The door was already open, Hana said. You opened it when you built shields that couldn't be broken by normal means. You created a situation where only abnormal means could work. You forced us to go outside the rules. Valth was quiet for a moment. Then he said, perhaps that's true. Perhaps we are both responsible for what has been created. But the fact remains these weapons are too dangerous to exist. Then let's make sure they're never used again, Hana said. That's why we're here. To find a way forward that doesn't require weapons like these. The negotiations lasted for 3 days. They argued about territory, about reparations, about the colonies the Valthran had destroyed. Finally, they reached an agreement. The Valthran would recognize human space as sovereign. They would pay reparations for Mars, Europa, and the other colonies. They would withdraw from all systems within 50 light-years of Earth. In return, humanity would agree to restrictions on the new weapons. The absence bomb would be banned completely. All existing copies would be dismantled under joint human-Valthran observation. The other 9 weapons would be limited in number and subject to international oversight. This doesn't feel like victory, Jin said that night, standing with Tay on the observation deck. Below them, Earth turned slowly in space. We won the war, but we had to build monsters to do it. All weapons are monsters, Tay said. But some are more monstrous than others. The important thing is we survived. Humanity has a future, do we? Jin asked. The galaxy knows what we built. They know we're willing to use weapons that break reality itself. They'll either fear us or try to destroy us. Let them fear us, Tay said. Fear is better than extinction. But not everyone felt that way. In her laboratory, Dr. Hana supervised the dismantling of the absence bomb. The weapon was carefully taken apart, piece by piece. Each component was destroyed separately, melted down or shot into the sun. It's strange, Wu said, watching the process. We worked so hard to build this. Now we're destroying it. Some things should never have been built, Hana said. But I'm glad it existed when we needed it. I just pray we never need it again. Lieutenant Nari stood in the corner, watching silently. She had been the one to fire the absence bomb. She had erased 4,000 people from existence. The guilt was eating her alive. It wasn't your fault, Hana said to her daughter. I gave the order. The responsibility is mine. I pulled the trigger, Nari said. I killed them. Or worse than killed them, I made them never exist. You saved humanity, Hana said. Sometimes survival requires terrible choices. You made the choice you had to make. Does that make it right? Hana was quiet for a long time. No, she finally said. It doesn't make it right. It just makes it necessary. You'll have to live with that. We all will. 6 months later, Earth hosted the first Galactic Assembly meeting to take place in human space. Representatives from 40 species arrived to see the planet that had defeated the Valthran. They came with curiosity, with fear, with respect. Ambassador Mira gave the opening speech. We didn't want this war, she said. We didn't want to build weapons that break the laws of physics. But when faced with extinction, we refused to accept it. We looked at the impossible and decided to make it possible. That's what humanity does. We solve problems that seem unsolvable. After the official meetings, many delegates wanted to tour the Prometheus laboratory. They wanted to see where the weapons had been created. Hana gave them a tour, showing them the now empty weapon bays. Are the weapons really gone? A delegate asked. All of them? The absence bomb is gone, Hana said. The others are in secure storage under international oversight. They exist as deterrents. As long as they exist, no one will attack humanity. But we hope we never have to use them again. Do you regret building them? Another delegate asked. Hana thought about that question. She thought about the people who died, about the ships destroyed, about the hole in reality where the Valthran dreadnought used to be. I regret that we needed them, she said finally, but I don't regret building them. Given the same situation, I would do it again, because the alternative was watching humanity die. That night, Hana stood on the roof of the laboratory, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valthran were rebuilding their fleet. Somewhere out there, other species were watching humanity and wondering what they would do next. The galaxy had changed. The old rules of warfare didn't apply anymore. Humanity had proven that shields could be broken, that the unbeatable could be beaten. Other species would study the new weapons. Some would try to copy them. Some would try to find counters. It never ends, does it? Jin said, walking up beside her. One war ends and we're already preparing for the next. No, Hana said. But at least we're preparing from a position of strength now. The Valthran thought they were unbeatable because they had the best defense. We showed them that no defense is perfect. There's always a way through, if you're desperate enough and clever enough. Is that the lesson we want to teach the galaxy? Jin asked. That any defense can be broken? Better than the lesson the Valthran were teaching, Hana said. That the strong can do whatever they want to the weak. They stood in silence watching the stars. Humanity had survived. They had built weapons that shouldn't exist, fought battles they shouldn't have won, and changed the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. The Valthran had said no gun could break them. They had built their entire civilization on that belief, but humanity had proven them wrong. Not with one gun, but with 10. 10 weapons that ignored the rules, broke the laws, and made the impossible real. And now, every species in the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity was no longer the weak newcomers. They were the species that looked at extinction and said no, the species that built weapons from desperation and genius, the species that refused to accept that some things couldn't be done. In the end, that was humanity's greatest weapon. Not the paradox gun or the entropy accelerator or even the terrible absence bomb. Their greatest weapon was the simple, stubborn refusal to give up. The determination to survive no matter what the cost. The galaxy had learned that lesson, and it would never forget.